listening to Represent, the queermusicals.com podcast. Hello and welcome to Represent, the queermusicals.com podcast. I'm going to get my guests to introduce themselves, so let's start with you, Maddie, if that's okay.
Hi, my name's Madeline Charlemagne, or Maddie.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Ayodele.
Hooray! So we're just going to start off by finding out a little bit about what you're doing at the moment, anything that you particularly want to share with our listeners at the beginning. So let's start with you, Madeline. What are you up to at the moment?
So I'm currently playing Fate 2 in Hadestown at the Lyric Theatre, and I also cover Eurydice.
Yeah, and I am playing Joy in Standing at the Sky's Edge, which is at the Gillian Lynn Theatre, running till August 3rd.
Hooray! And you must go and see both of those shows because they are both very wonderful. So I was going to talk a little bit, I guess to start off with, about, because this is a podcast about representation. So thinking a little bit about how you kind of step into these roles, but also thinking about where you've seen yourself in musical theatre, because musical theatre hasn't always, as we know, been great with representing different people. So can we start with you, Maddie? Is that all right?
Yes. So the other day, I filmed a little something for Kids Week about like one of the first shows that my first theatre experience. And this is not my first theatre experience, but it almost feels that way because of how significant it was for me. I was 14 and went to the Lyric Theatre in Hammersmith to watch Panto because they have a deal for families. So it was affordable for my parents to purchase like tickets for my parents and me and my brother to go and see Panto when I was 14. And we went to see Aladdin at the Lyric in Hammersmith, and on stage, the Jasmine and Aladdin were both black actors. And I mean, I've been wanting to be an actor since I was a toddler or whatever, wanting to perform. But I remember being so struck by seeing two black leads on stage. And, you know, I'm very lucky. I have supportive parents, and I'm just, you know, was like a headstrong kid and was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And decided that from so long. But to see it on stage and see someone that looks like me on stage in a leading role, I was like, oh no, it really can happen in a more cerebral way, instead of like this sort of childlike, that's what I want to do and I'm going to do it. A very kind of concrete answer was given to me in that moment, and I just remember it was great. Panto was excellent, bloody hilarious, and yeah, that was so striking. I had been like I had said, I'd been to the theatre before then, you know, here and there a couple of times, but to be in a local theatre and to see that was really striking as a teen.
They do really good musicals at Hammersmith, though.
Oh my gosh,
do.
Fangirls is coming and I can't wait to see it.
Yes.
Jasmine Alcock's in it.
Jasmine Alcock, who was also on our course.
Oh, amazing.
She graduated last year and she's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think, I know what you mean in terms of like going to the theatre and then the first time and you're like, this is me, but it's up there, but it's me, but it's up there. Because I think that's like, I think that holds power, but not just power, it also really normalizes things, because it means that it's like, oh, this is not just acceptable, but this is like the standard. This is how good it can be. Because I feel like a part of representation is getting to the stage where we all just know that it's actually perfectly normal. It's all just, it's actually quite ordinary because we are all so different. To have that difference reflected in all our main spaces, it shouldn't be the kind of thing that's like marveled at, or like, oh, it's so irregular, but it was so fantastic because it was so irregular. But actually it's fantastic because it's the thing that we all know in society. It just is now being reflected in that big public space on a stage. I haven't quite had an experience like yours where I was like, because when I was younger, my parents, I mean, we were just like not into theatre, not into art. My dad actually never lets me forget that years and eons ago, before I was born, he went to television school, whatever that is.
Come on, Dad.
No shade to Dad, but he's always like, you know, I could have done this.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay. But when we were younger, that wasn't my experience with him or with my parents. I think just by virtue of like where we were at in life, we didn't consume art in the live any live art. We didn't go to concerts. We didn't do shows. But I would watch a lot of TV. I would watch a lot of film, and I really felt very reflected because I would like constantly be watching a channel called Trouble, which basically had every Black American sitcom you can think of. I was like Martin, My Wife and Kids, Half and Half, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I was just always watching those shows. And so it was so normal to me, like watching Black families, watching Black stories. It was when I got outside that people were like, no, that isn't what everyone's watching and that isn't the experience that everyone is. And I was like, what?
Crazy.
You're joking.
Yeah.
But it's sitcom gold.
Yeah.
And so I felt, especially it's weird because at that point in time, I was like, oh, I feel like I have so much access to things. And Desmond's as well. And I was like, and my dad would watch that constantly, but also we would watch like Only Fools and Horses. And I had such a spread, and I think Only Fools and Horses was really good because I was like, you just don't get more working class than a person who thinks they're going to be
By next year.
Me. Because you got to dream big when you've grown up, and you're like, we haven't got a lot, but we're gonna make it out.
I feel like we also haven't said this. We're both like Black working class women.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about how we met.
Okay, so there was this program called Open Door. The founder, David Mummoney, was an actor. I think he also writes and produces and directs. Does it all, that guy.
Yeah.
Man of many hats.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he kind of, a few years before 2018, he had this idea that he would try and help people who were a bit more like him, who were working class, get into drama school. And so he had access to, I think, 2 twins, I want to say, 2 like young actors who just basically wanted like a little bit of assistance and guidance in the auditioning process for drama school. And so he kind of like did like a trial course with them in which he got to like coach them a little bit, help them out with their audition speeches and just give them like the kind of guidance and direction and push that other people get just when they have money. And so they auditioned and both got into really good drama schools. And I think it kind of gave him the confidence to be like, do you know what? Maybe I could run a program that does this officially. He applied for Arts Council funding, and then our year became the first year of Open Door.
Okay.
Group 1, baby.
Group 1, first cohort, legends. All right. But it was really, really exciting at the time that we were asked to do this because we all kind of didn't know where it was going to go. We all didn't know if it was going to be successful. He himself was like, look, I don't know that you're all going to get in. There were 31 of us in that first group, and they only intended to take on 30 people, but David's just got a big heart, so he's like, I can get the one extra. And he like called, begged, bargained and borrowed from all friends in the industry so that we could have tutors, so that we could have workshops, so that we could feel, so that we could go into the schools that we were auditioning in and have space in those rooms, so that when we walked into those rooms we weren't like, oh, this is the first time I've ever been here. And so we all kind of didn't know what it was going to be. We didn't know whether it was going to take off, whether it was going to help us, or I think his main mission was like, I just need everyone on the other side of the table to see that we are just as good and we get in just as much, but actually we don't have the access. And I think it's a massive barrier when you're working class and there's like a lack of knowledge or a gap in just your like I said, access. There's sometimes a limitation. If I hadn't done Open Door, I would have only been able to afford to audition for like 1 or 2 drama schools at best. Through Open Door, I got to audition for 5. And I then got in, and I was like, I actually got into 2, and I was like, this is the difference. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm working class, I wouldn't have, first of all, had access to that many auditions. Second of all, I wouldn't have had the confidence to go in and be like, I deserve to be here as much as anyone else. And that was a real gift. And us being in that first group was quite funny because I remember there were so many people that I was kind of like overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I see Maddie. She's tall and cute. see other people. Another actress that we know, Dion, was kind of like the person that I was a bit clung to. I was like, okay, Dion's like my person here. All right, that's fine. And Maddie got on really well with everyone. Shock. She'd get up to do like a Hamlet speech and everyone would be like in tears. Like, oh, she's really good. She's really good. But it was just quite funny because I remember just always just like seeing each other and being like, oh, this is a nice safe space. Because even though we weren't all close, we were all in that buddy first feeling. And it really did. I came away feeling like, oh, this was like a proper like company vibe.
100%. It was such a community.
Yes.
It was such a community. I feel I owe Open Door so much that, just like Liz said, that was my second year auditioning. I dropped out of school at 17. And then that year I auditioned, I could only afford to audition for 2 drama schools. So I auditioned for RADA and Lambda and didn't get in. And then like for a couple years, just like I called it my degree of life. There were like 3 years where I was just went to the Lyric Hammersmith and took classes there and did stuff at the Royal Court, all sort of like 18 to 25 scheme, Amdram type stuff, and also started facilitating drama facilitation as well, which was amazing. And then Open Door came around and just thought, well, why not just give it a go? I knew it would be super popular. Like, what an incredible opportunity to, for free, have a mentor, have a buddy, be able to audition for these schools, get pre-drama school training, and then to get in was like mad. But yeah, no, I so agree about the company vibe and the feeling of community, so much so that then when we did go on to go to drama school, I was shocked that there were other people who weren't like us. I was so shocked that there were people that weren't working class, because we had for a year been in this community of people who were just like us, that it shocked me to my core.
But not just that, the group was so like mixed.
Yes.
It was like, we're black, we're white, we're Asian, we're this, we're that. Like, and it all felt really normal.
Yeah, extremely normal.
And actually, because the first year was just London, I think there was also there was like is it a cocoon? Is that the right word? There was like quite a small feeling of that where we all knew we were from London. And I know since that time, Open Door has managed to branch out to the Midlands, which is fantastic. So but also I was like, I have been bamboozled into thinking everyone
is like me.
It's like me.
Yeah.
And then I got to drama school and I was like, they are not like me.
Yeah, we are not the same.
We are not the same.
Which is amazing. We love diversity. We love, the richness of the craft is the richness of a diverse group of people. I would hate for everybody to be the same.
Yeah.
But I think specifically like realizing that the barriers that we face as working class people were not homogenous. It still doesn't really connect in my brain. I think there's an idea of like a starving artist, and I'm like, yeah, because
we
we're
all are,
right?
But you'd be surprised, actually.
You'd be surprised.
It's definitely one of the things that I think with drama schools, because the cohorts are generally, or certainly some of the cohorts are so small, so you might be coming in a group of 15.
Yes.
And I suppose one of my worries, and this has been the same actually teaching in a university as well, is for people who come in and feel like they don't have anybody there that has the same experiences.
Yes.
And to me, it's really important. I mean, my background is particularly as an LGBTQ person. And so I'm always very upfront when I'm starting to teach with a group that is who I am, and just in case there's anybody else in the room.
Cool.
So I think that's one of the things that is really difficult to negotiate, isn't it? Is when you start at drama school, especially. I mean, I've looking at some cohorts, and there might be only one person that has an Asian background, or there might be only one person that's disabled, or whatever it is, and it's really difficult. And musical theatre has historically not been great at representing those people on stage either.
Exactly.
So Open Door sounds like such an important
I feel like
thing.
I've missed a big caveat to this. I luckily didn't have, I say didn't have to, that's incorrect. I feel like I cheated the system and won in the best way, because after Open Door, I was going to say I forced you to be on the same course as me. No, no, that's not true.
Like, where is this going?
No, I'm joking. All this to say is that then we ended up in the same year on the same course, which I'm very, I thank my lucky stars for.
Thank the Lord, Jesus. Thank you.
Because then we had each other, and we had each other from that experience of Open Door, and then through those 3 years. Those 3 years.
Hilarious. I do know what you mean. I mean, I was like, wow. But I think looking back now, I'm a bit like, I wish that we had the space once we actually got into drama school for someone to come up and be like, this is who I am. And it took us maybe into our second year before we then were like asking questions. And they're right questions to ask, like how many of our teachers are working class? How many of them are from different communities? How many of them actually represent what we reflect as a student body? Because that is just as much a part of the process of representation as anything else. And so I remember Maddie sort of started and was like, everything we did in first year was by someone old, dead and white.
God, I did say that. Damn, I was.
Maddie was such a trailblazer. I was like, oh my gosh, she's shaking the table.
So then we had Americans in second year. And I mean, actually, even like the pieces that I brought in for drama school, I was like, for my contemporary piece, the writer was Michaela Cole. I did Chewing Gum Dreams. I was like, it's a black British woman from a working class background who I want to, that's the work that I want to bring in. And then for Americans, I was adamant about having a black playwright. Not just for myself, but for everyone.
But literally, and it was like, they should be female, they should be young, they should be this. And I was like, yes, actually, because that then goes into the psychology of the course. If we're doing writers and pieces that are not just like classics, because classics are important, but how do we analyze the classics, and how do we use them to our advantage, and then how do we move on to things that are more representative of like who we are now and what we are now, because we actually know that there was just a limitation of access however many years ago. It doesn't mean that queer writers weren't writing. It doesn't mean that black writers weren't writing. It just means that we didn't have as much access to their work. And so if we do want to go back, let's go back and find them as well as finding Chekhov. And if we do want to go forward, let's figure out who's writing now, who's exciting now. I know people could probably go into drama school now and be like, maybe I'm going to do Jeremy O. Harris. And good for you. Do you know what I mean? But that's the thing that I think kind of clicked in second year. The minute you said it, I then went, she's right. She's so right. Because we, as a course, then started asking bigger questions about like, and these are questions that I think students should ask before they leave. What kind of work do you want to do once you get out? Because if it is work that is like representative of who you are, then you kind of need to start training in a way that feeds into that, or like you need to start analysing work that will help you access that, the fullness of who you are. Oh my God, I'm going to forget this really famous play that Guion did so many times.
Angels in America.
And I'll never forget and I was like, this guy's just got one thing, but it was because that was a thing that was so distinct for him. That was, and it was so important for him. And I remember walking away and being like, do you know what? If there's one thing that you can take away, is that you should be very proud that you brought yourself to that work, and that you felt reflected in that. But it was kind of like the moment in drama school in which I was like, there is not enough representation on the table, and that must change.
Yeah.
Because I respect Shakespeare, I respect the classics, I really adore doing that work. It pushed me, it helped me to grow. But one thing that I was like, it must be beneficial to every student, not only to do that work, but to see why that work is still universal and not like box fitting, you know, you wear this or you look a certain way.
Yes.
I don't think, and do you know what? Shakespeare's dead, so we'll never know. But I don't think that he was writing strictly binary characters. I don't think he was writing strictly black and white people. I don't think, do you know what I mean? I think the lens in which we've used over the years is, this is how it is.
Yes.
But actually, Romeo and Juliet is whoever.
Yes.
And as we've seen in recent months.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Some people could do it and kill it regardless of how they look, but we should celebrate the fact that they look however they look.
Yeah.
And I found it really hilarious when discourse started coming up about that, because I was like, if there's one thing I do know Jamie Lloyd to do, it is going to be to cast a black actress.
Exactly. Very that.
I'm like, I watched Cyrano twice, 2 different Roxannes, both of them were women of colour.
Yes.
And I was like, why is everyone getting on to Jamie now?
Yeah.
What is happening?
Definitely.
What is going on?
It's very repetitive and very boring.
Yeah.
And I mean, just congrats to Fran for being incredible.
For being out of this world.
And the community for coming together, but it is extremely boring.
It's exhausting, and I'm just like,
The fact that
how
it still
basic can you
happens.
get?
Very that. But I think I'm extremely over it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as hard as everybody makes it out to be, that there should that people should be represented. It doesn't stop. Representation is not the end of the fight of this white supremacist patriarchy that we're living in, and that permeates through art, because art is life and vice versa. It's not the end, but it's part of it that I just think is so much more simple than people want to make it out to be. I feel so like, insert word here because I'm lost for words. The company that I'm working with at the moment has a disabled artist, has a trans artist in our cast, has people of colour in the creative and stage management team. It's just it's the way that it should be, but I know that it's not where it should be though. Like I imagine it. I can only imagine that. The improvement from 20 years ago when we were not in the game. But I do believe that, it can continue to go further. There's just no excuses anymore. And it's not about ticking a box.
No.
It's literally like, there is no reason for it not to be a certain way. But then on the flip side, I hear it when people comment and say that there is like no reason for there to be an all-white cast on TV or on stage, in a play or in a musical or whatever. I understand that, and at the same time I also think, but if that's the story, if I'm watching The Ferryman, I don't need for there to be a black woman in The Ferryman, because that's not the story of The Ferryman. Or I just need Schoolgirls, or the other name of it, the African Mean Girls play, to be next door, because then I can see a fully I don't know actually, is it fully black cast? I can't remember. Not important. Majoritively black cast.
Majority black cast.
In a show, and go and see a show about a white Irish family as well. The fact that it's not about, everything must be this, like, we must tick a box for every single show. It's just that the range of shows, because there is so much work happening, can represent everybody.
Yes.
I don't think, it's almost this thing of, reviews nowadays where a piece of theatre doesn't solve all the problems in the world or doesn't address
Yes,
every single thing.
yes.
I'm like, but that's not what the play is about. Or even if it was, it's okay for it to mention something and not save world hunger at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
like people I think are, it's interesting actually. We're like, it just goes to show how not easy it is, I suppose. On the one hand, it's super simple. On the other hand, it's not, because we want change, and at the same time, it's hard and slow.
Yes.
In some ways, and I don't have the answers. It does get exhausting, I think. I think the exhaustion doesn't help, like, figuring it out when other people want to bring in so many supposed barriers. But yeah.
If you're interested in LGBTQ+ representation in musical theatre, check out our website www.queermusicals.com for lots more information about musicals with LGBTQ+ characters. It's one of the things that occurs to me from that is the difference between colourblind casting. Then there's something called colour conscious casting, which people talk a lot about as well. But then there's also certain shows or plays or musicals which require there to be a particular people to have a particular experience or to be from a particular background for it to work. And it's trying to get, I suppose it's a balance thing, isn't it? Because I can't remember seeing there being more plays about people from the global majority than there being plays about white people in the West End. I don't think that's ever happened. I don't think we've ever got to like a tipping point where suddenly
We're not there yet. No.
And it's the same thing to some extent with LGBTQ representation as well. Is that, you know, there are times when I've looked at the West End and gone, oh my goodness, there's an LGBTQ character in nearly everything.
Yes.
And there were times, and I would say even just before Sky's Edge came out, there were times when I've looked and I've thought, actually, I don't think there's an LGBTQ character in a lead role in any show on the West End at all. And I'm guessing it must be the same for all sorts of people from minoritized backgrounds or backgrounds where people haven't had the same representation on stage. And so I guess maybe to move on to perhaps talk a little bit about Sky's Edge and Hadestown, because Sky's Edge is a musical that requires certainly at least some characters to be, you know, some characters are black in that show, and other characters could be, and there's a lovely balance, I think, in the casting there, but also in the way that the story's written. Can you tell us a little bit about Standing at the Sky's Edge?
So my character, her name is Joy. In the show I play a Liberian immigrant. She's come over at the age of 14, and then we watch her basically like develop her whole life in this estate in Park Hill. Makes me sad because it's a sweet place, and it has a hold of my heart. And so particularly for my characters, quite a massive coming of age story, because we watch her develop from just this young girl who's kind of like wanting her parents, wanting to go back home, wanting to get answers, wanting to know the truth. And then she falls in love and she finds balance and she finds home here in Sheffield. And there's a line in the show that my character's daughter says, this is a city of sanctuary, which is, I think, quite powerful, because Sheffield then becomes this space, and it was at that time and it is now, where everyone is kind of welcomed in and everyone is looked after and taken care of. And so I find the story to be overwhelming with like joy and pride, and it makes me really proud and happy to tell this story, but in other ways it's bittersweet and heartbreaking, because in the development of the show there have been things that have had to, you know, fall to the wayside, or like elements of the story that I think have been clear, but people have sometimes walked away and not listened intently enough to understand that she's come and she's become an orphan, and that side of immigration, I remember throughout the whole audition process we spoke about at length, and I think that was what really hooked me, because I I'm a child of immigrants, I'm first generation here, but also there are conversations that we've been having about immigration in the last few years, specifically with politicians, that feel closed and that don't feel quite honest. Or I think now there is like a mindset that is feeding into everyday Britain that immigrants are some sort of threat to us or are in some way different to us. And so I really, really wanted to tell this story because I wanted everyone to see the development of a person who is just like them and actually would live next door to them. And Robert Hastie, our director, often said that Park Hill was the kind of place that you could zoom in on any flat and all of these experiences would exist just in different ways over different courses of time. We just so happen to fixate on this one flat. And so we see 3 different stories, but they link in such a powerful way. But I would say in terms of the representation in that show, there is like no stone left unturned because you have the immigrant family, you have the family that was born and bred and raised there. You have Poppy's character who brings that side of like moving away and coming from London, but like finding yourself just somewhere in the north that's quite niche and cute, and there's larger conversations at play, but they just underlie the fact that we all build a community by being different, and that we inhabit these spaces at different times, maybe, but actually it's all the same. It's all one, and so my character falls in love with a boy who's like born and raised there, and he his family have like felt the effects of the miners' strikes and Thatcherism and that whole industry breakdown that affected the north, and not just northern cities but affected the whole of the UK, but specifically the north so hard. And then you have Poppy's character, who is someone that I think that everyone can be like, you had a breakup and it was crap. And it's just, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but actually someone I knew who I've worked with in the past came to see the show and was like, I actually didn't like Poppy. The minute I found out she was gay, I loved her. But it made me laugh so much because it's like, it's that thing that we build into our minds that we think we know. We think we understand the person, and then something just tips it and we go, oh my God, actually, I didn't know them at all. I think meeting Poppy, you're just like, oh, she's just this upper middle class socialite maybe. What does she even do for work? No one can really figure it out. Her mum can barely figure it out. But she makes money enough to just pick up and pack off. And then you meet her partner, and Lauren Redding is just insane. We were in the room doing our first run 3 weeks into rehearsals, and I was distracted. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so good. I think like 7 cues. I was like watching her going, she's sick. She's incredible. But because the two of them have built such a beautiful love story. They have built this beautiful love story, but Chris has written 2 very flawed people, very flawed love interests. There's nothing about them that's very cutesy. There's nothing about them that's they're actually kind of messy. And you kind of don't even understand how they would have gotten together. Then there's like this droplet of information that they work together and you're like, yes. And they just took this massive risk and fell in love. And at first it didn't work out. But the charm that Lauren plays Nikki with, I just think people, like, you're lying if you're saying you wouldn't go back. You would. You would. Because actually, Nikki is like the messy part lover of all of us. And Poppy is the lover that we want to be, that's very mature and very stern, sticks to her guns. But together they make magic, I think. And I think there's a moment in the show that always gets a laugh. Now, at the end when they make up and Lauren goes, cheers, guys. But it's because people want to see some kind of happy ending. Even if it means that we're making choices that we question. But it doesn't need the love story to be completely clean. It doesn't need both people to be completely, and I think that's the thing, that's the gift that Chris has given us in writing these really flawed lovers, is that actually in the other 2 love stories that are taking place, there are other factors that mean they might not have ever made it But if you can make it, and that's the gift that I think the characters Poppy and Nikki give us, is that if you can make it, it's worth making it.
Yeah.
Because love is enough, and you can do the extra work. And it just so happens that these characters are gay, because I actually see so much of myself in Nikki. I'm a bit like, I'm a mess, love me anyway. And I have previously dated a guy who was a bit like a Poppy and was like, this is insane. But it's wonderful, and that's really lovely, because I don't walk away going, oh, that's just a gay love story, or it's just a queer love story. But it's more special that part is celebrated and that it's not ignored. Because it's interchangeable, but at the same time it should be marked that these two people are this way. So I think there's a lot of representation in Skies. It's such a special piece. Like, I could talk about it forever. But it's also like a part of me that I'll never get over. Like, when I first read it, I was kind of like, God, there's a lot to do. How am I gonna do this? And also, my character's love story is slightly I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it's like kind of heartbreaking. And I remember at the start, I read it in my bed and I cried, and then I went, okay, you've cried now. Now you'll just get onto the work, and you just do it. And then we got into the room, and I think the director just knew that it was going to be a sensitive moment, so we had quite a closed rehearsal. And then we got to the final scene in the show, and I was like, I won't be able to continue this rehearsal. We literally read it, and I was like, I'm fine. All right, let's get it on its feet. Let's block it. I was like, such a professional. And then the other actor, Sam, just like started talking, and I was just like, no, I'm losing it. But I say all that, the only reason I went on that tangent is to say that we are in an interracial relationship. And for years, I think I thought I knew the kind of people that end up in interracial relationships. I was like, you do that, and that's not for me, but you do that. But that's not to knock them. I say that to say this, is that I always thought that you can only truly celebrate who you are if you end up with someone who's exactly like you. And that was quite a young way of thinking when I did think that way. But I think specifically over the last few years, and then also in line with doing this story, I've seen that there's so many ways to be celebrated by being with someone different. And Chris doesn't write down anything on the page that is like, we're in an interracial couple. And I could give us 7,000 standing ovations for that, because I would have hated that. But also because it isn't. That's another thing that then celebrates the representation, is the fact that, yes, they look different, but actually they could be you. And so this immigrant has come here and found love with this local boy, but that could have happened to you. And I think I find that really special. And me and Sam have like spoken about it at length in the past, that I think the gift of telling this love story is that you don't have to speak about all of those things, because they're together, because they just love each other so much and so hard. And actually there's a world in which they might not fit, but actually they do really work, because he's a hard worker and she's a very determined young woman, and they care so deeply about each other without even understanding it. And from a very young age, to be so invested in another human. I mean, when we're young, we're all just a little bit indulgent in our emotions anyway, but to care so much and to want the person around all the time, and then to grow with that, I find to be like amazing. And sometimes that's what makes me emotional at the end of the show, just the thought of how much they have fought through to be together. And so I think, I mean, I've said it in such a short way, but I think Sky's Edge is one of those pieces that represents people in a really authentic way. I could speak at length about all of it, but it just feels really special, because I'm like, we don't have to do the whole thing where it talks and celebrates the fact that they're an interracial couple, but we mark it.
Yeah.
We don't have to do the thing where we have banners and whistles about the fact that they're queer, but we mark it.
Yeah.
Because this is who they are. That's Sky's Edge in terms of representation. God, that was such a long-winded...
Amazing.
That was so long-winded way of saying
that was
all.
really great. So, Maddie, can you tell us a little bit about Hadestown and your part in that?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, I play Fate 2 of the 3 Fates, and I also cover Eurydice. As I mentioned, I play Fate 2 of the 3 Fates, and I also cover Eurydice. I love Hadestown. What a show Anais Mitchell has concocted. And just the whole team, like it's gorgeous. I need to book a holiday just to go and watch it. I didn't get a show watch. But apart from Waylon, who is first cover Hermes, all of the first covers went on before the first cover rehearsal.
Oh, okay.
So I think maybe just like one of the first covers got a show watch. That's not true. That's not true. But I didn't get one. Basically, is the key to this. I did not get a show watch, and I desperately want to because I love it watching it on stage and watching my colleagues on stage. Never mind being out there and like seeing all the things come together. It's a story. It's based off 2 Greek myths: the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and the story of Persephone and Hades. And the trip to the underworld that happens when Orpheus tries to rescue Eurydice from the underworld, and Hades is the king of the underworld, and Persephone is his wife. We see their kind of like estranged relationship, and we see Orpheus and Eurydice fall in love, and it's really interesting what we were discussing earlier, especially about me being such like a no old dead white men on this course anymore. When I have such a love for the classics, like that is like that's kind of my not my MO. I just can't think of any other word, but like my dream. I love the classics, and I love Greek theatre.
Yeah,
and so. This musical, the fact that it's this, Greek myth, and it is so epic, and just like basically a long musical poem, is a proper bit of me. And when I heard it was coming, I was like, I want to do that. And yes, and so we do have a diverse cast because such an old story. There is no like this person has to be this way.
Yeah.
And from its inception it's been a diverse cast, and always a lead of color as playing Eurydice. And like I said, like it's a Greek myth. There is no this character must look a certain way at all. We've had Orpheuses of different heritages, and they're just a range of basically. The whole cast has been a different heritage in every iteration, which is amazing and is the way that it should be, because like I said, there is no it must be a certain way, because it's such an old story. And so to see just a whole bunch of representation on stage is great, and just really reminds me of drama school. The fact that we're doing this piece in our own accents as well, whereas previously it's been done in an American accent. The fact that you can hear a Cork accent and a Nottingham accent, a Trinidadian accent. We have our first cover Hades, who is from London, and so the first, fans were going crazy for Chris's Hades because it's the first time they've heard that character being sung with an English accent. Even that kind of representation of accents is just so it's wild to me, the response that it gets, because that, apart from Americans, I can't think of any, or our accent work that we did, everything else was essentially done in our own accents, and we were all from different places when we went to, in drama school, our cohort, And so it's just very, very natural to me that people will bring their own accents, and there's just nothing like it. I mean, I love accent work. That's another thing on my career bucket list, is to be like in a period piece set in the Deep South.
I seem to only do things with the
that's very. Oh my god, I just said that as if I didn't do Secret Life of Bees last year. But I want more. Anyway, all this to say, I love accents, but there is nothing like doing work in your own accent. What it brings to the work is huge. Like a Trinidadian Hermes, Mel Barry, the star that you are, like an Irish Orpheus. It does something. It's so I can't put it into words. And the fact that this is like, I can't put it into words. It's so truthful. And that's all we've been taught to do, is be truthful in our work, in our craft. And then to tell this epic story with your voice. Yeah, that's so powerful, and I'm so appreciative that I get to watch that every night. And I've covered Eurydice a fair bit, and to have young black women at stage door, tell me how inspired they are to see me is such a wild thing. Like, I was gonna say I'm no one. I'm someone. We're all somebody, but I'm no one for these young, hopeful performers to like say that to me. It just blows my mind. I'm like, that's crazy, that all I have to do is be myself for someone else to be affected by that. I don't have to put on airs. I don't have to change my accent. I can have like a kinky curly wig that I specifically helped design with the team to mimic what my hair looks like, and that can be on stage, and I don't have to change the texture of my hair, the way that I speak, or the way that I look, to have an effect on someone who sees themselves in me, and people who do not see themselves in me, people that I'm very, very different from, and can still enjoy the work. Yeah, being able to bring yourself to the work is, I don't have the words for it. I just feel extremely privileged that that we have an outlet for that. And yeah.
I think that's so important though, because I think for such a long time it's been people who, again, from all sorts of minoritized communities, people will say you can play these roles, but as long as you do it with an RP accent, and as long as you do it in a way that doesn't draw attention to difference,
exactly.
As long as it's done in the traditional way, and this again true for queer actors as well as it is, for actors from different ethnic backgrounds or from, it has. I love the fact that we're starting to get these productions that are saying, I mean, doing stuff in your own accents in that story is so important. And I know that that's something, actually, to be fair to drama schools, which I'm not always on these podcasts, but to be fair to drama schools, I know that it's something that a lot of drama schools have moved towards, is to say, look, when we're doing voice work, we're not going to make it that the first thing that you learn is RP and that's what everything has to be. We're going to start from where you are, and I can't ever imagine not teaching in that way, the way this is what you bring, and that's great, so let's start from there.
100%. It's making me think of our accent teacher Louise Jones, who I just rated so much, because she's excellent, but also and she's instilled this into me so much that when I hear this word, it actually like gets my back up so much, that she just completely banned the word lazy, because in the past, or I'm sure it happens now, about the way that people describe accents in order for you to access them, and that there's certain accents and there's like this rooting of classism in the way that they talk about certain accents. Oh, it's just more of a quote unquote a lazy mouth for this, or using this language to describe these accents is so, it was just gross. And Louise was like, nah, we're not going to do that. That's not it's got nothing. The connotations of that word have got nothing to do with the accent. If your jaw needs to be a bit looser, or your soft palate needs to be raised a little bit to achieve, this glorious northern lilt, then we'll go for that. But words like lazy or whatever, I can't even think of any. But I just remember specifically that word is like, no, we're not using that. That's not what the accent is. All the way to achieve it, and yeah. So you telling me that then just reminded me of good old Louise. Yeah.
But also that thing that drama schools are hopefully doing more now, which you're speaking to, that is about bringing out more of the person as opposed to like the product that we will then sell at the end of the year that is like fits into the industry. Because actually, although the industry has so many flaws, we are now fortunately seeing stories and spaces that actually mean that if you don't bring yourself, you won't have anything to offer.
Yes.
And I think that whenever I didn't feel it at drama school, I remembered it from Open Door. But that quality of like, bring you, be you, it's about you and who you are authentically, that then made me go, great. Because actually no one can duplicate that. No. Liz is Black believer, lover, friend. Liz is light. Liz is joyful. Liz is, and it made me go into audition rooms kind of like, hey guys. Yeah. And I often make this joke that I'm like, everyone just hires me because they're like, she's a bit of a vibe.
Absolutely. Don't even need to see her act.
But because they're like, she might be poor, she might be really rubbish, but actually she's such a vibe. Yeah. But that in and of itself is the thing that I think when you are reminded enough in drama school, in Open Door, in spaces that are influencing you, you can go out and do your best bit. It's like what you're talking about, like doing the thing in your own accent. Like you really can offer so much more by just being like, I'm me. And it sounds like so lame and so basic to say, but it has to keep being said, because actually, especially with the way that we consume art now and we consume media, we have it blasted at us so much, but sometimes in a way that is quite restrictive. If you don't look this way, you'll never X. If you don't have lip fillers, if you don't have this, if you don't have this many followers, you won't attain whatever goal. But being artists has to be about, your soul and your heart and what you have to give, and your heart is who you deeply are. If that is a gender neutral person, if that is a person who is just Black and the loudest person in the room, not being shy from that. I used to really get annoyed when people called me loud. I used to think it was like some massive insult because being Black and loud was negative. But rewiring those words, rewiring the way that we think about the words like lazy or means that I can be Black and loud and be proud that I'm Black and loud and the loudest woman. Yeah.
Hooray!
That's actually so resonant.
Don't stop. Yeah. But I think what you're saying and what you're speaking to in terms of like that expansion that drama schools are seeing now and being able to offer people the chance to work in their own voice and to say we're not going to do things that mold you into the actor, but rather things that bring out the actor that is in you. Because actually, if you're good, you're good. Do you know what I mean? Whether you are able to do a really sick RP accent or not, you're going to be skilled because you're actually just going to bring yourself to it. Yes. I can't imagine going and seeing anyone. When I watched James McAvoy as Cyrano, I wasn't like, oh, his Scottish accent is... Do you know what I mean? I was like, he's just sick. He's just really good up there. He's really alive and really in it and really felt. Yes. And I connect to him. And actually, they're saying his character's ugly, but I've never been more attracted to a man on stage. And I thought that's not just to do with like his face. It's to do with his presence and his aura and his ability to be himself up there. And so that's something that I think is...
Just got to say it out loud. Cyrano de Bergerac is like one of our favourite pieces.
It was so good, guys.
Impeccable
it was
work.
So good.
Before we wrap this up, I just thought of something and I can't believe I haven't said it already. Representation is not just about what the visual of seeing it on stage, but about the people. I say this literally every day, that I'm so blessed because I love the people that I work with, and theatre and art industry is so much about the people in and of themselves, like the actual people that we're actually working with. To be in a team where I'm surrounded by women is so freeing.
Yeah.
I suffer with terrible menstruation cramps, and every month I'm on, I know that I've got someone I know that someone's got my back.
Yeah.
If I've left my hot water bottle at home, Sita from the sound department will bring me her koala one. And you know, like that, like it's so, it's such a weight lifted to know that me as Madeline, as the human, can come in and not feel 100%, be under the weather, and that I have people around me that understand that. And also for there to be women and people of colour in the backstage team is like so impeccable. They don't get that, but backstage stage management don't get enough of a highlight on them anyway. But then for there to be diversity and representation there is just exactly as it should be, and I just feel very blessed to be around that. And then on top of that as well, just because it was World Sickle Cell Day yesterday, on Juneteenth nonetheless, you know, that's a invisible disability that affects Black people. One of my colleagues at work is Miriam Nyako, who has sickle cell, and the fact that she was able to be in our company, educate us about what she goes through, but still work on the West End and be supported to work on the West End. You don't have to be this. I don't think that drama schools do this anymore, but to be this kind of like perfect thing, even actually, not even a human being. Like, you don't get sick, and you do this and you do that, and you look a certain way, and you talk a certain way, and that you can just be yourself and be supported in your work environment. As the human being, that is a very, 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 very beautiful thing that I just wanted to bring up there.
Oh, thanks. That's great, and thank you both so much for coming on the podcast, and it's been lovely to talk to you. And thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
On the next episode of Represent, the queermusicals.com podcast, we speak to Jessica Aubrey and Joshua Clementson from the cast of Wicked. This episode will be published on the 29th of July. See you then.